More shoreline than the whole coast of California.
Excuse me.
This place right here has more shoreline than the whole coast of California. And apparently, every summer. Hang on.
Hey everybody, we're back with Ozark Talks number 7. I'm here again. This is Garrett. I'm here with Lance and Taylor.
Hey guys.
Hey everyone.
And I hope you guys have been enjoying and having a fun ride with us so far. There's a lot going on here with what we're doing, and so it would be really great to see some really specific comments and feedback, either if you go to radicalundoing.com/blog and then you navigate through there. In fact, I'll put up a special tab somehow where you can click to just view all 10 of these Ozark Talks in a little gallery. Hint, hint, Taylor. And then you'll be able to check them all out there and leave comments on each one, because we'd like to actually have this be a growing and public dialogue where maybe we even catch the attention of folks who are creating the show. We'll see what happens. But it would be great to help explore these themes with you, and particularly with a view to how might you utilize this event, this Netflix TV show, one among thousands or millions, I don't know how many there are, and actually utilize it. Utilize your time spent sitting in front of the computer watching it and listening to these recaps and our analysis of it. How might that be a form of training for you? How might that actually enrich and enhance your life? Not just now while you're listening and watching, but forever, for the rest of your life. Now, I've seen that effect with the training we do and the efforts we make in this direction. But this is the first time we've put out this type of training for free, number one, and then also disguised as a 10-part podcast episode just talking about one of our favorite shows. So you might pick up on the meta level of what's been going on here and how our effort and your effort listening and making this become real relates to Marty Bird's efforts in the show and in the universe of Ozark. And see that there are boundaries between these universes are more fuzzy than they might seem. Yeah, one of the coolest things about all this training in the art of NGF, and the reason behind doing this podcast, the whole Victim to Adventure podcast, is that everything you need is found. And need, what is it? What do I mean by need? Everything that you might require to move your life forward in ways that are more fun, more enjoyable, more empowering, more challenging even, and because of that, more satisfying ways. All that's required for you to do that is present in the fabric of your daily life, in the people you already know, in the situations you're already in or on the edge of. And so by utilizing a tool like Netflix and a show like Ozark, you are bringing to light, just like finding a key tucked away in a drawer under some clothes, in a cabinet in a house that you saw down the road that had been abandoned for a couple of years, and that key happens to open a treasure chest, and in that chest is a way forward into a new way of perceiving your life that gives you a sense of at-homeness or belonging, or at least presence in your life, instead of dreaming about what it could be and hating what it is and fearing what it might be, and all of those webs that our minds get tangled up in. So with that, let's just dive into Ozark Talks number 7, and you can know that part of the intention here is to untangle some of those webs. Yes, we are just sitting around having a conversation, but each of us has risen to the occasion of actualizing transcendence on a daily basis in our lives. And so that's being brought to bear on a little piece of reality that you might not otherwise notice. So let the webs clear, untie some knots, undo yourself, and watch some Ozark. So I love the opening of Ozark Talks number 7. It's called Nest Box. The definition of nest box is just a box provided for a bird to make its nest in. So we'll see how that comes up. The opening scene, which was the same as the closing scene from episode 6, was Marty driving up by the half-built church and sees that a cross has been put up against the wishes of the Snells. And he says, Jesus, fuck, they put up a cross. He tries calling, he's frustrated, freaking out, and he tries calling Wendy, and he's leaving a message. Jesus, fuck, they put up a cross. I'm going over to the Youngs. And he goes straight to Mason and Gracie's place, the preacher and his wife, knowing that Snell, he might have to beat Snell to the punch there.
No, he gets there just in time.
He gets there, and the Snells are walking up the yard.
and Marty immediately positions himself between the Snells and Mason
and Gracie.
And Gracie, yeah.
Yeah, Marty just runs up immediately. He's super intense about it, and he spins it immediately into, I was thinking of doing business. The Snells were thinking of doing some business with me, and they knew that I was doing that with you, so needed a reference. Mm-hmm. And Darlene at that point rubs Grace's belly, which is Grace is pregnant, so we get a nasty vibe there. And Marty says, so why don't we leave the Youngs and go negotiate?
And you see Marty having to think very quickly on his feet again here, as we've seen many, many times. You know, under quite extreme pressure, he has to know exactly what it is that that Jacob would find valuable that he can do for them in order to prevent something terrible happening right here.
Mm-hmm. And he's not only promising investment, that means he's going to be probably laundering money for them, or he's tied into them from this deal.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a big move. One thing I didn't understand, which maybe it just makes sense, that Jacob wasn't going to leave without the cash. It wasn't going to be like, okay, you got 48 hours and then Marty gets to go get the cash. But I wondered why Marty went from 100,000, 200,000, all the way to everything he had. Why didn't he just do 500,000 or 600,000? You know what I mean?
I think
or was this more metaphoric that he loses it all at this point?
Yeah, that's what it was.
I think at some point we do hear Jacob say that he wants everything that Marty's got, all he's got, something to that effect.
Well, Marty says, Marty said first, I have $724,000 and whatever, all earmarked. And he goes, all you got sounds good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jacob tells the story to Marty. I love Jacob's stories at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Jacob or Joseph? I keep calling him Jacob. It's Joseph.
Jacob.
Is it Jacob? Okay.
I think it's Jacob.
And he tells that story to Marty about how he skipped school to go see the dam when it first opened. And he got to go see it, and he got out of punishment. But his dad said, I'll break your nose if you do it again. And then he said, next year comes around, I skipped school again. I went over to the dam. You know what my dad did? Marty's like, you broke your nose?
Mm-hmm.
And so he's basically telling Marty, anything else happens with this guy, we're going to cut the baby out. You know, I warned you, and now I let you off. That's the end of it. So Jacob steps it up a little bit here too.
Yeah, big time.
And we always know when Jacob's telling a story that something bad is either about to happen or is being promised.
Yeah. Yeah, and I press rewind to listen to it again.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, the actor's excellent. He's quite a presence. And
yeah.
The only reason Darlene works at all is because Jacob's there, just slightly more crazy, but way more contained than her.
Yeah, it's like last episode I said that his presence was demonic, but that's I'm kind of passing a bit of judgment on them. He's kind of like a black widow in its web, and Marty's like a fly who found himself in the black widow's web, and he just has to come to understand the black widow's nature. And the black widow, being Snell, is comfortable with who he is in his web, and he's telling Marty, "You're in my web. This is where I live."
Yeah, and like we've been here forever.
Yeah.
Us in the Ozarks are the same thing, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah, he does seem to not only consider himself to be, but kind of embody almost like an ecosystem or some force of nature. You know, I don't think that Jacob has any problems with guilt about what he's doing, and I think it's because it seems like his natural state. You know.
Yeah, Jacob is going with his own flow and the flow of nature and the land and the economy and everything with what's going on. But it's kind of a dark force in a way still.
So yeah, Marty hasn't figured out how to share that environment with him yet.
Yeah.
What kind of exchange they're going to have to be? I mean, it take a while to work out. It's like, gee, you lived with a black widow behind your fridge for a
Couple
while.
Months, yeah.
Yeah. Would you live with one that was like hanging over your bed?
I know that's a little bit. I would move it for sure and have a discussion.
Yeah. So that's what Marty's got to sort out.
Yeah. The thing is, I know that they won't go to the bedroom for no reason. You know what I mean? They perceive sound and vibration and activity, and they purposefully distance themselves from it. Now, of course, you could find them in a shoe or in a drawer. You know what I mean? They can make mistakes, but they do so when there's not much activity there. So well-trafficked areas. Anyway, that applies probably to the Snells as well. So they wouldn't be messing with him if he was living in Chicago. You know what I mean? They'd have nothing to do with it. So the next scene we get is Jonah is wanting to kill starlings. He's watching a video on YouTube, as he's want to do, or on whatever things he's watching. And he sees that they're invasive, how they got put into the U.S. From elsewhere and kill a bunch of other birds. And he says, killing one stops 11 invaders. Killing one mother stops 11 invaders.
Which is interesting to think about in the Ozarks, where there's kind of this locals versus tourists kind of thing, you know?
Mm-hmm. Right. Very interesting and strange. It does seem like Jonah fits in more than almost anybody in the Ozarks. Him and Buddy together. But we'll get to him. I think this is going to be developed more in his character later.
Yeah, I would like to see his life story told. I think Jonah's going to be an interesting dude.
Yeah, so he wants to kill starlings, the invasive birds. And nest box is our theme here too. So let's see what else comes up. Next scene is Ruth and Wyatt feeding the bobcats, the female bobcats. Which is interesting because they have the female bobcats in a cage and Ruth runs the strip club. There must be a little parallel going on there.
Yeah.
She has the black eye from Russ and is going from last episode, and she's going to see her dad in jail. Her dad is actually some other famous actor, semi-famous actor, so I think he's going to be present for down the road quite a bit. Ruth gives Wyatt food money for school. So we see that she's still seeing the compassionate Ruth coming out, and maybe some of that's rubbing off from Marty and Wendy to her too. Russ comes up and apologizes. It does seem genuine, but he's obviously afraid. And I think, yeah.
Another thing we see about Ruth at that part that has kind of been reinforced a few times now is that while the rest of the Langmores and probably a lot of the people who are local to the Ozarks are looking for quick temporary pleasures and gains. Ruth is thinking more long term about actual growth. She's trying to make sure that Wyatt and 3 actually go to school, and whatever you think about school, but
But that's
Ruth,
symbolic.
Yeah, exactly. She's wanting something more long term and some real growth, as opposed to whiskey and fireworks for a weekend.
Right. Next scene we get is Russ and Petty. And this is when Petty is basically getting a confession out of Russ in the guise of getting him to tell the story and begging him not to kill Marty. It all works out for Petty. Petty seems to be 100% manipulation at this point in his life and in his job.
Promise me that you won't try to kill Martin Bird again. I need the words. I won't try to kill Marty Bird again.
Accessory to murder, that's what she'll make you, he basically says to Russ, which I realized at some point that all amounts to his confession, because, well, let's get to that a little later on this episode. But Petty's still developing Russ as not only as a partner, but as turned him state's evidence against Marty and Ruth. Then we see Marty on the phone. Basically, he's trying to make back that $724,000, and he's calling all his old financial clients of his in Bruce's business. But everybody wants Bruce, and no one was going to buy in from Marty, even though he's the one who did all the work. Wendy comes home. She discusses with him. He's basically trying to start up a new fund to cover the $724,000, and then later pay it back out of the next load of money, and then make it back up over time. Then we cut to Wendy. So we still see Marty trying to work some other angle, still trying to do something semi-legit. Then we see Wendy at a new house, and a guy with glasses just comes in and wants to see a house for rent, and basically baits Wendy to take him out to see all the local houses. And right as they're driving by the school, he goes, "Oh, isn't that where Jonah and Charlotte go to school?" And he's a cartel guy. Oh, he asks, "When did you stop being Wendy Bird?" She, of course, is going by Wendy Davis. Which is another interesting point. So she's distancing herself a little bit from Marty and what's going on there, and trying to be on the up and up. It's not necessarily against Marty either, but it's just, I think she's trying to be independent. We see her standing for herself. So they see the Lakeside School where Jonah and Charlotte go, and she pulls over pretty quickly after that. And he just tells Wendy, "Our eyes are on you and yours," and gets out and walks away. I don't know where he was headed, or someone was following. I love how a lot of the people on Ozark just get out in the middle of nowhere and walk away. They all have extra cars, so they leave for those scenes.
Hidden in the bushes.
Yeah, I'm going to go scare Wendy, so can you guys just have a car somewhere along this road?
Yeah, and at that point, I mean, the next thing I have in my notes, let me know if I skip anything, but is Wendy talking to Marty about what just happened, and she's pretty terrified.
Yeah.
And Marty tells her, "Don't listen to his intimidation."
Mm-hmm. He goes, "Don't listen to him."
Jesus, Marty, he knows the kids' names.
What do you sound like?
Like a scary motherfucker.
Yeah, that's great. His answer is just, "Okay, we don't even have time for that." Okay. So then she steps up right away and goes and works Dermody, the guy who runs the real estate business, to get him to invest his mom's money into Marty's new fund, which basically is more than enough to cover the money that's missing. And she fucking totally works him, and his personality and his weaknesses and his mom. "You gonna let mommy strong arm you?" she says. And he doesn't know. The mom doesn't know that Wendy and Marty are related.
Mhm.
yet. And she gets him to reveal what his dream is, which is to be a motivational speaker. I thought that was a nice little touch.
Mhm.
And because she's the one working the motivation there, and
Mhm.
he gets into it. So she gets him to reveal his dreams and then attaches what she wants him to do to those dreams of his own. And then it makes sense for him to do it. Next scene, we get to Preacher and Marty. Marty's like, you can't put up the church. And he's like, oh, I had a dream with St. Peter, and he said that we're building a church. And Marty says, well, sewage was so different back then. Times. And then the preacher's pushing, and he's like, you're not going to do anything on this property. Marty is just like pushing. And then finally he's like, no, listen, why do you think there's two different colors of hymnals? One of them have heroin in them. The Snells are using it, going to stay on the fucking water.
Yeah, he goes radical honesty.
Yeah, he's just like, basically, I'm saving your life, and I'm going to ask you to save mine.
Yeah.
And the preacher just is fucking destroyed, basically, by this.
Yeah.
And we'll touch on this a little later, but the scene was Marty basically like, we're going to have to do anything we can do here. Petty is the next scene, and he's talking to the partner, the FBI agent back in Chicago, on the phone, the former lover. He says, once we get Ruth, she'll give up Marty.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically this is when Russ is getting turned into the FBI. Petty's telling him about Russ, and he's thinking Petty still wants to be Russ's handler, but realizes he's still undercover. So they're going to need that agent or a different agent to come down and be the handler of Russ. Next scene, Russ and Boyd are just picking trash from the lake, stuff to sell, basically. Mm-hmm. It's kind of sad. And Russ tells Boyd, this is, I think, one of my favorite scenes in the entire season so far. But it took all the rest of the episodes to make this scene really special.
Bird, that it? We'll get another shot at him.
I've been thinking about doing something different. I don't know, like bait and tackle or some shit. Hire in, making people come to me for a change.
By yourself?
I don't know. Maybe.
Here. I know people think I'm stupid.
What are you talking about?
It's okay. I know what they say. But I see things. Perception ones.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, we're all different in what people think, in some ways. Nothing wrong with it.
What's your point?
Well, I'm saying, you want to do something else, be something else, I got your back, that's all.
Yeah, you're right.
So they're dredging trash from the lake, and Russ tells Boyd his dream. He wants to open up a high-end bait and tackle shop, which is basically his ticket to an awesome life, and it's right within reach. It basically is within reach for him and has been. And Boyd gives a great performance here. I know people think I'm stupid. I know what he's like, what? And he's like, yeah, I know what they say. And then he's like, but we're all different, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
We're all different than people think, and there's nothing wrong with it. What a great line. We're all different than people think. This is something at the core of the art of not giving a fuck, is recognizing this fact and then embracing the adventure of exploring people and situations rather than thinking you know who and what they are
Yeah, because we all have a closet to come out of.
Exactly. And it's not about Russ's homosexuality that Boyd's talking about. He is, but he's using it to talk about something a lot deeper. Like, hey man, I'm with you no matter what the fuck you are or what you like or don't like, is what Boyd's saying. And he's like, just because people think I'm stupid, I can actually notice what's going on and they won't know that I know. You know what I mean? So Boyd is pretty sweet and special here. And that scene was really excellent. And it sets us up a little bit for what happens with Russ. The next one is the preacher. And the wife says, God, I think it was the wife, Gracie tells him, God wasn't protecting you. The kid just had shitty aim.
Mm.
Massive blow for Mason.
Mm-hmm. Because like, why would God create the guy to shoot you in the first place? Why did God create the hymnals with the heroin in them? I mean, what is he thinking? You know, how does this really work out for the preacher? So Gracie's asking him like, hey, can we just fucking protect ourselves right now and this kid, this unborn child? So we skip from there.
Yeah, she's asking him to give up his story.
Yeah.
To make the best decision that they need to make right then and there.
Yeah, exactly. Asking him to just be present to what's happening and there rather than have an idea how it should be. Then we see the school and the commitment against drugs is for DARE, basically for the DARE program. I don't think they outright say it in the show, but that's what it is. And the kids are supposed to make a commitment against doing drugs and alcohol, and they're supposed to sign it in class. And Jonah won't sign it. And he says, and she's like, just sign it. Come on, everyone has to sign it. And he's like, can I think about it? And she gets upset further. And this is an interesting little metaphor because they're showing how in school you learn everyone just has to unanimously accept what's being presented. And there's not even room for questioning. And in fact, questioning throws the whole thing off. Questioning makes it like not work right away. One person questioning it is like, oh no, this isn't cool. And the other students walked out or crumpled their thing up and didn't sign it. We hear later in the principal's office. And basically we see Jonah explaining the same way Marty would, like what's going on with the economics of the situation and how even the school's probably been paid for by some of the drug money that they're supposed to sign this paper against. And so then it cuts from him explaining to the teacher right to him explaining to the principal the same exact shit. And Marty's sitting at Jonah all seriously. And he says, well, you got to admit, he is right.
You got to admit he's right. Economically speaking, I mean, it's not easy to hear, but
This was not an intellectual exercise.
And then the principal basically is just like, well, this is the scene cuts because the principal says, well, don't you think this is a little odd? Both your kids have trouble the first day. And they're like, what's wrong with Charlotte? And they're like, yeah, she's gone. She took off. And so they immediately, Marty goes to Ruth's, finds out Charlotte's running to Chicago, taking a bus or a train. So she's going to be at the bus station. We see Ruth catching herself in a lie because she goes, oh, the beast, you can take the beast. It's working again. She had to tell Marty earlier when she was trying to kill him that car wasn't working. And so this time she goes, oh, it's working again. And maybe Marty doesn't notice, but she noticed. So she's still shaken up over that whole deal. And she said she has to go visit her dad. So she's going to ride with Wendy to get Charlotte from St. Louis, where the bus station would have dropped her on the way to transfer to Chicago. Next scene, we see Mr. Bold Mason, the preacher, stroll up to the Snells. And he said he refuses to allow them to traffic over the water. And he says, I can't do it. And then Snell gives him a real talking to here, which I liked Snell's speech about, why can't you do it? You just preach to the choir. You only preach to people who already believe what you're saying. Or why don't you go preach to these people about drugs? You know? Just like Marty told him, preach to them about that they'll go to hell for selling drugs or whatever, you know?
What about our souls? Can they be saved? Or maybe they ain't lost. I think you've had a hard life. I can see that, and yet you struggle. God sent you his teachings, but are you listening?
I want my church, sir.
You have your church on the water.
Darlene, stay and listen.
I'm through listening.
Stay and listen. Now, Jesus, he preached the four soils on the border to those gathered on the beach, did he not?
Mm-hmm. And did they deal drugs while Jesus was giving his sermons?
What do you think? You think they were all pure as driven snow? Are you that innocent?
Don't you mean naive?
You have your church. Why would you want another?
Marty Bird wants to build us a church.
Is that what he wants?
Yes.
Because he's a religious man? Because he's an angel?
Why would Martin Bird want a church? You ever think about that? He's a money launderer, son. He wants to build and build and build, inflate construction costs, and run money through a building that's never going to get built. Drug money.
I don't believe that.
Check his books, son. See how much building he pays for in cash. No, I don't know if Marty's a good man or a bad man. I think we're all good and bad. But I think you should consider what it is you do best, which is standing on the bow of a boat, bringing God to those whose hearts you might open.
And right before Jacob goes into that, Darlene says, "I'm going to get some lemonade."
Right. So she's like, let's just kill him. We're gonna kill him, right?
And Jacob puts the brakes on it.
Jacob's like, no, we're going to talk to him. And I think to some degree, and even if it's just one tiny bit, 1% or something, of Jacob doesn't want to kill a preacher. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He has to have that in mind to some degree, because he tells the God stories, and, you know, he's not completely devoid of an awareness of what's going on there. And not only that, but if he starts killing everybody in the Ozarks who other people know, it's going to be only so far before the FBI is all over the place.
And
So,
what did he preached the four soils? I wrote this down. I don't know what it means. Does he tell another story to the?
well, he also said, Snell asks Mason, what about our souls? Like, isn't this about everybody's soul, or is it just about what you want? And he said, I want my church. And he said, you have it on the water. And then Snell tells the preacher that Marty's a money launderer, and Mason doesn't know this yet. And he said, and Jacob says, I don't know if Marty's a good man or a bad man, but you get back on the water. So the preacher meets with a wall basically here. He's getting it. You get back on the water, and that's it. And you're in my good graces for now.
Yeah, the preacher's in deep now. He realizes what he's really dealing with.
Right. And he didn't know that's why. Oh, because Snell basically explains why Marty gave him the money, so he could launder money. So yeah, Mason is crushed further and further here. And we're seeing like kind of how the show treats hope and religion in a way. That's not exactly where the flowing life is. It's not through having ideas about what should happen or what God wants or any of this stuff. It's about being present to what is and operating within it. That's the only way anyone's getting strength. That's how Snell has his strength. That's how Marty stays strong. It's how Wendy is rising up. It's how Jonah is being strong, and even Charlotte. So we see the guy who's relying on blind hope being crushed here, and things taken from him for not being present to what's actually what the situation demands of him, and working within it. So next we see Ruth helping Wendy find Charlotte at the bus station, which is pretty cool. Ruth working with Wendy.
Mm-hmm.
I like that they drove together out there. It must have been a great drive.
Yeah.
Charlotte says, I want her old life back. And Wendy says, it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. I had a little sense of, I asked myself, who's Ruth's mom at that moment? And just seeing her become closer with Wendy and the family and not feeling weird about it.
Mm-hmm.
And her allegiance shifting internally.
Right. Because she gets punched by Russ, gets screamed at by her and abused by her dad, and then gets loved by Wendy and Marty, and even to some little degree.
Her dad calls her, says, you look like a whore.
Right. Marty would never say that to her.
No.
Even when she's at her worst with him. So they basically all decide to stick together, especially Charlotte and Wendy. Then we see Marty selling Eugenia Modi on his fund, and he's talking about safety or trust. Safety and trust. And she's like, well, why don't I just take all these numbers and these recommendations to the guy I already work with? And he goes, I recommend you do that.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a really classic negotiation technique that you actually suggest that they go ahead and do what they're saying already.
Yeah.
Because in essence, and by doing so, they'd be taking your advice still. So they automatically will respect what you have to say.
It's funny, earlier today, I watched a video that popped up on my recommended vids on YouTube, and it was Jennifer Aniston doing a little speech for Jason Bateman for his Hollywood Walk of Fame star. And
wow.
And she said in it what we suspected, that if you ever had the luck of being in a boardroom with Jason Bateman, he's a ferocious negotiator.
Mm-hmm.
And they laughed.
I bet.
So,
yeah. That's awesome. Oh, that makes me so happy to hear that.
Yeah. So next, we also see him say, that's a beautiful piece of art, which was also the piece of art that Wendy trashed on, that everyone hates. That he just, he knows that she likes it. It's there on the wall. So he uses what's going on rather than fights it or judges it at all. He doesn't give a shit about the art. Except for the fact that it's there and that he can utilize it. And then Eugenia says, you know what? As Marty's leaving, she's like, let's do this now. Let's just do this.
Right now.
So he gets the money. They're stoked. Next scene, Wendy takes Ruth to see her dad at the prison. Ruth is absolutely terrified. Cade is her dad. He wants Bird dead. And he tells her, you look like a whore, just like Lance mentioned. And he tells her a story about chickens. About chickens sticking their neck out. What was that? You guys pick up on the chicken story?
Yeah, he's saying chickens are stupid enough that when they feel their head on the chopping block, they stick their neck out and make it easier to cut their head off.
And she's like, oh, stupid chickens. And he goes, stupid you. And he says, don't come back here until he's dead. And right back to Charlotte and Wendy. And I hated that guy, Cade. It was really, he plays it really well, I guess. Mm-hmm. I'm still kind of astounded that in prison, like Taylor and I have talked about, they don't have any kind of monitoring system on what he's fucking saying and doing.
Not in the movies.
Not in the movies, yeah. So we have to have him as a villain, and it wouldn't work if the guards were immediately like, hey, you can't be killing people from in here, you know? All the FBI on Ruth, you know, it would all fall apart. But metaphorically it works. And I'm getting a sense of more of a comic book style of story presentation in this Ozark universe than, like, we're left to create a lot of the story in our own minds and in our experiences, in our heads, as opposed to them being 1,000% explicit about things. We have to reason through the emotions of the characters and things like that. They give us hints more than fill it all in, so that it's like a comic. Sometimes we get.
It was just completely deadpan, just almost relief.
I think it's that it was so final that it wasn't like a car where she got tossed and was screaming. You know what I mean? It wasn't a motorcycle accident. It was just final. And the thing that the show is brilliant at is every time it presents any kind of violence or gore or trauma, it does so in some non-conventional way.
Mhm.
Every time it's used. It's
As a
used to
storytelling
maximize its
device.
power as a storytelling device. Exactly. It's not there because violence should be in this scene because these guys have guns. Let's shoot them off and spend some money and film. It's like every bullet counts. You know what I mean? You can count them in most of the scenes. Every little bit of violence or trauma or shock is there to save time on film and to push the story forward more rapidly. So in this scene, or to cause a transformation or some type of transcendence, or to cause a pivot in the life of a character or in the disposition, you know what I mean? The choice-making faculties of someone get jumbled around. So in this case, we see the money has just gone to Marty. Now she gets killed, and it leaves it open to how's he going to react to this in this new situation. Next scene, we see Russ has made an amazing brochure for their business. It's almost like someone could run with that and open that store that he's describing there, and it would be successful. It's kind of cool. So he's made a brochure, and it honors Petty, and it's kind of like he's going to come out of the closet. Next scene, and that's sort of, I think, Russ opened up because of that conversation with Boyd. Mm. He went ahead and thought, yeah, I can do this. Even though he played it down, he downplayed it with Boyd in the boat. The next scene we see is Mason burns the entire church down, and the Snells see it from up on their vantage point and say, "Preacher did the right thing." And the Snells notice that someone has been watching Bird. They notice someone's watching their home and watching Marty. And the Snells are pretty upset by Marty. I think it's important that they notice someone's watching him because they think, oh, maybe if we kill him, it's not that big of a deal. But they still don't know. They don't know where he's at in the chain of command. Then we see Jonah watching animals getting poached. Is that on? That's like on a video, I believe. So Jonah's watching animals get hunted illegally. So we just see some kind of increasing violence vibe in Jonah. Maybe not violence though. It's really analytical still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's curious.
And there's some parallel between what he's watching and then the intensity ramping up in the show, especially intensity around him as a character and his gun and that home situation.
Yeah, he's very much left to his own. So.
Marty and Wendy, we cut now to Marty and Wendy, and they're talking about Charlotte. They say, we took her life away. All that she thought was safe was a lie. Wendy says, should we send the kids back to Chicago? Marty's immediately like, no. There's no hesitation, no question. He's like, no, that's not going to happen. And when shit gets hot, you pick up and run. And Wendy at this point says, we're surrounded by death here. And they bring up Buddy, and they bring up the Snells, they bring up the church, they bring up the dock with Bobby Dean floating at the dock. We're surrounded by death here. And Marty says, this is just another betrayal.
Does he say that?
And she says, let's be honest, betrayal? You have a video of me on your computer. You've watched it 27 times in the last month or last 2 months or whatever it was. And Wendy asks him, why didn't you confront me? And you see him pushing his emotions down. And she says, you walled me out. And he says, do you know how many times you could have said no to him? And he goes on that chain. You could have said no to the first drink he offered to buy you. You could have said no when the first time he got you the hotel, when you got the hotel room, you could have said no to him when he took off his pants. You could have said, you know what I mean, all this stuff. And he says, what was I and then she says, what was I saving myself for?
Yeah. Yeah. So when they took on this, the money laundering, Wendy's saying that Marty shut down and started to be protective and isolate himself and dissociate from the family.
Because,
we start to see the deeper layers of that. I think in the next episode, we start to see what took place there.
In number 8, yeah, the kaleidoscope, we get to see, I think it's fun to think of Ozark episode 8 as a still life. Now that's hard to wrap your mind around because it has to occur in linear time for you to watch the episode, but you'll see right away the episode does not occur in linear time. And to understand it, you can't exactly follow it in linear time because episode 8 is going to fill in the blanks of everything else that might be a question up to then in the show. How it all came about and in a certain sense, how none of the characters had any volition, which is a really strange turn. Because Kaleidoscope seems to show that they all, well, I don't want to get into it too much here, but it seems to show that there was no choice in how this all came about, even though each person thought they were making decisions. It shows that it was almost a foregone conclusion how it was all going to go, how everything fell into place so perfectly.
So that conversation between Marty and Wendy reaches a fever pitch, and it's wonderfully acted how they aren't getting to the heart of the matter. And
yeah, she says, I didn't want protection. I wanted you.
Yeah, and she says, Marty says, let's say exactly how we feel. Can you do it? Or are you a deceitful bitch?
She says.
And then she actually one-ups him on that one. What did she say there? But it's a beautiful display of how only once this is aired, only once all the pretense is stripped bare and the sore is dealt with, can they move on. And it's kind of like what happened with Marty and the pastor too, where he tries to just BS, but then like the kettle gets too hot and it just blows over.
Mm-hmm. It's how new boundaries of interaction are formed and respected by first yourself and then automatically by other people through expressing that. And the only, let's say, good and powerful relationship is one that's formed out of a series of successfully navigated negotiations.
Yeah.
Not one that's based on a bunch of agreement of opinions or we hang out during the good times kind of thing. It's actually through a series of negotiated situations that deeper bonding and experiences take place. So at this point, I had the note in this, why me here? I don't know what I was thinking with that, or why are we here during that conversation with Marty and Wendy. And something about out of necessity, not desire. Or no, why do you still have me here? I think Wendy's asking Marty, why do you still even have me here? And he says, it's out of necessity, not out of desire.
Yeah. Wendy calls Marty out because he's playing a little holier than thou, and he's denying that the sexual encounter was fueled with resentment and hate. And Wendy says, "You slap my ass." And that is such bullshit.
Right.
Because Marty's trying to play like she's the deceitful bitch, as if he hasn't been sitting there stewing over that video.
Right. And then he says in tears, "You broke my heart, Wendy."
Yeah.
We see it finally rise all the way to the top. He expresses the core of the issue. And at that point, Charlotte sinks to the bottom of the lake. She was lost out swimming during this scene.
Mm-hmm.
Sinks to the bottom of the lake, and suddenly, right when Marty says, "You broke my heart, Wendy," Charlotte kicks back up out of what looked like to be a drowning scene, which was very interesting. Right at the moment Marty and Wendy burst through or transcend the argument to what was at the core, the broken heart, Charlotte comes back to life.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, Marty and Wendy open up and share with each other about what's been going on. And that's a great way to end the episode. I think I do understand now why it was called Nest Box. A box provided for a bird to make its nest in is because that's what Marty has been constructing and defending the entire time. And now we see the structure of it, and we see it was almost broken, and that the Charlotte almost leaves. Jonah's watching people animals get killed. The whole family breaks apart in a way. And then Ruth helps them get it back together. They bring Charlotte back. Charlotte comes up out of the water. Marty and Wendy take the next step together, even though it's crazy hard. And we see that it's very difficult. It's just as difficult, or maybe more so, for Marty and Wendy to take that step as it is for Marty taking steps with Dell in the cartel. You can see how much sway and how meaningful his family is to him.
Mm-hmm. And Charlotte, when she comes out of the water, she releases this joyous giggle to herself.
Right. Yeah, so we see a beautiful setup, and I think that's good for Ozark Talks number 7. Like I said, please leave your comments in the comments section. Email us if you want to talk in more depth, and really feel free to leave lengthy reviews in the iTunes section, the Art of NGF podcast on iTunes. And then earlier, as Lance had mentioned, we have a DVD out that's going to show you some elements of how you can apply what we call the flowing life, the life of the adventurer, and it relates very well to the life of Marty Byrde. So check that out at bit.ly/flowing DVD. You can get that right now on the cheap. It's a great workshop, lots of bonuses, and you'll see that link in the description for each of the podcasts. So have fun, folks. Thanks a lot, Lance. Thanks a lot, Taylor.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you. See you guys.
And we'll see you again for Kaleidoscope. Enjoy.
Not the kind of people who run from something like
We
this.
have a child to worry about
That
now.
God will protect. Just like he did in St. Louis.
Mason.
That bullet was 0.3 of an inch from rupturing the aorta, but it went clean through. That is not a coincidence.
God wasn't protecting you. The kid had shitty aim.